Join us as we embark on a journey to study Jesus' revelation to John and better understand our place as his kingdom people.
So let's jump in and take a look at this text that we have. Now, I don't normally like starting with movie references because I know not everybody has seen these movies, but one just fit today as I was reading this text, and it just drove home an idea that we find here, and it's one of my favorite scenes from a movie. It's from the movie The Matrix. Now, I assume you've heard of the movie. If you haven't seen it, you might get an idea of what's in that movie, but the idea of the movie is everybody is trapped in a computer simulation. So everybody's in this virtual world where algorithms and computer programs control their entire lives, and all they can ever see is what's put before their eyes there. So very much like our world nowadays, it seems. But that's the Matrix, and everybody's stuck in this computer world except for a few humans who have gotten out. And one great scene, one wonderful scene in this movie has to do with a guy who you thought was a good guy by the name of Cypher. And see, he was a guy who was freed from the computer, but he learned something. He wants to go back. He wants to go back to living a lie. The reason why is because the real world has freedom, yeah, and there's hope for victory in the real world, but the real world is hard. It's challenging. He wants an easy life, even if it is false. And so in this scene, he's sitting at a table in a fancy restaurant, and across from him is a guy dressed up like a secret agent or like a Secret Service agent who's really a computer program. And they're talking about this, and he's sitting there and he's eating this steak, and as he does it, he says this. He says, I know this steak doesn't exist. I know that when I put it in my mouth, the Matrix is telling my brain that it's juicy and delicious. After 9 years, you know what I realize? He takes a bite of the steak. It's a good-looking steak, too. His response, ignorance is bliss. What a line. A line that even we can live by at times. Because even when you know the truth, the lie can be easier than the truth. It can be easier living in the lie than it is to actually recognize what you know to be true. Now, when we come to a passage like this today, what we have, we're encountering this thing called the whore of Babylon, or Babylon the whore. And it's easy to say that's the world out there. That's what's out there, and we're the good ones, and we just got to stay away from that. But the problem that we have to deal with is that we can find this in ourselves when we believe the world's lies, or when we live as though those lies are true, living in the lies of the world. Those lies are simply how the world works, the way that the world finds success. And the name that is given to it is this name Babylon here. That's what we're looking at. Now, Babylon, it may be out there, yeah, but we also need to watch for Babylon in our hearts, how that can seep in. And to do that, what we really need to do is make sure we understand the lies of Babylon, and we reject those lies. Reject the lies of Babylon. Now, that requires coming from a place of trust. Trusting, even at times when things might be at odds with what you see, that you can trust God. Trust what we've been talking about these several weeks as we've been going through these passages of Revelation, that God really is in control even when things look crazy. Because Babylon, as we'll see, it looks good. It looks successful. It looks like a great steak, but the steak is a lie. It's a lie that is doomed to destruction, and a lie that will try and take everything that it can with it into destruction. That's what's revealed in this next vision that we see here. So, open up your Bibles, if they're not there, to Revelation 17 as we take a look at this. Again, Revelation 17, as we get to this passage, God is moving towards wrapping everything up. We've been through the cycles, those cycles of the seven seals and the trumpets. We've been through the bowls. We've been through all of these things coming about. We've seen God's wrath expended upon the earth, and now God is just beginning the process of wrapping it all up and closing down the world's program. And as he does that, Babylon is one of those things that must go. And in the process of seeing this vision, John gets the opportunity to see Babylon for what it really is. And as we listen to it, we do get that opportunity to see what Babylon is even now. And so that's what we're finding here. First, we're going to look at the image of Babylon. That's the first part here, as we see what is so seductive of it that draws us in, that we can allow into ourselves. But we're also going to see the reality of Babylon, its final end and destruction, why we must reject it. So 2 things we're looking at today. I know it's not 3, I'm sorry, but we have 2 things to look at today as we get to this text. So let's jump in and take a peek at this. Now, as we read about it, as we read about this image that's being put forward, we can be honest, even with ourselves, that we often put our best foot forward, right? When you meet somebody, you want to give a good impression. Maybe even when you come to church, you want to make sure you want to make yourself look good. You want to put on that mask at times. There is that desire to just make it look like everything's all together and everything is good. And there's that common cry against Christians. Well, what can Christians be called? Hypocrites! Oh, they're just a bunch of hypocrites. To which the proper response is, well, yes, we are. That does happen. That is true. We can be hypocritical. We shouldn't be, but we can be. And it's good to realize that and acknowledge that. But we shouldn't miss this. So is the world. So is the world. It is hypocritical as well, and that's what John is seeing here. Only the hypocrisy here isn't a hypocrisy of claiming victory, of saying this is working and this is the way. So let's take a look at the first couple verses as John is introduced to this vision. Verse 1, we read this. Then one of the 7 angels who had the 7 bowls came and said to me, "Come, I will show you the judgment of the great prostitute who is seated on many waters, with whom the kings of earth have committed sexual immorality, and with the wine of whose sexual immorality the dwellers on earth have become drunk." So in those first couple verses, we have an introduction, but we have an image given of the people. And one thing that we can see here is everyone gets in on Babylon. Everyone is getting in on this lie of Babylon. It's not just kings who are brought up, but everyone who dwells on earth. So, what is it? What is Babylon? What does this represent? Now, as we go through it and we read the descriptions, we can try and assign, some sort of kingdom or empire to it. You might have seen the charts where it lays out, what kingdom or empire or king or Caesar, whatever it is, might be the ones. You can do that. And I've heard plenty of them. Some will say it's Rome. Growing up a Lutheran, it was always the Vatican. It could be the European Union. It could be, Babylon, the city, the actual city of Babylon itself. And this is, I believe, pointing to one final city, but it represents the way of the world. And that's why it's being described here as a whore and dealing with sexuality. And I am using that word specifically for this passage. The ESV does translate it prostitute, but that really brings it down a level from where it is. Because if you're dealing with the word prostitute, you might get the ideal of, well, someone who, that is someone who is selling their body, but you might have sympathetic images of, down on their luck, really struggling, they don't know what to do, and they're just making bad choices. That's not what Babylon is. Babylon's a whore, and that's the image that we have right here. Distinctly and directly turning against God and running to something else. That is the image. But we're not talking about sex here. What we're talking about, if anything, is almost religion. We have a religious worldview that is being presented that is at odds with the worldview of the kingdom. Because Babylon is an idea. It's a proposition. If we're going to think about it like a kingdom or a city, well, you think of America. America's an idea. Yes, there's land. Yes, you can find documents, but ultimately it's an ideal. It's an agreement of all the people who live here that say, yes, this is our nation. Yes, this is its history. This is what we see. This is what we hold on to. And the ideal of America, if I were to sum it up personally, I would say the concept that you are created to be free, and you are created to use that freedom for the betterment of those around you. I would see that as a very good image of what an idea of what America could be. Well, Babylon actually has a similar ideal in a way. The ideal of Babylon is this: you should make yourself free. That is, you should be free. Free from what? Oh, free from God. So free yourself from God. Free from responsibility. Free from whatever slows you down. In fact, you know what? You should make yourself God. Why aren't you God of your own life? So from the very beginning of human civilization, that has been the aim. Babylon goes back to the earliest days of human civilization. And always that has been the image, trying to make themselves God. Now, why is it called a prostitute here then? All right, we have the image of Babylon, but why a prostitute? Because that is running from what is right, the right relationship with the right husband, trying to find another relationship, thinking the grass is greener on the other side, running from what God is. And we see that all throughout the Old Testament. We have the image of God the Father as the husband to Israel, loving Israel, and yet Israel rejects and runs. Plays the part of the prostitute. Well, on the other side of it, on the other side in the New Testament, we have another image, and that's of Jesus Christ being the husband and the church being the bride. We have these images. And so to run from God is to live out that life of whoredom here, that is leaving the one you should love, the husband you should have, to chase after what feels good. And a lot of people are taken in by that. We can be taken in by that. It's not that hard when things look bad and things hurt and you look out and things out there in the world are working. Our response can be sometimes whatever works, we'll do it. I'll take charge. I'll run the show. I'll grab the reins. And if God is really there, then he better just follow along with my plan, not the other way around. And that's the Babylonian worldview. Make the world in my image. Going all the way back to that first structure, when we go back into Genesis and we see the image of the Tower of Babel, that was built in Babylon. Those were the plains of Shinar where Babylon was, and they were building this structure. And what was that structure they were building? I mean, it was a tower, and its purpose, a little crass, but I mean, truly, it was like throwing up a middle finger to God. It was saying, God, we don't care what you're doing. We're going to stand against you. You want to flood the world? So we're going to make a tower so we're above it. You want to send waters? We'll make it waterproof. One of the interesting things about that tower is the fact that the construction of it indicated that it would have been waterproof in what they were using. God, try. We're going to be above you. We're going to be gods and control our own life. We're not going to allow you to control us. We will be God. That is Babylon. And the danger comes for us when we fall away from trusting God. We fall away from trusting him. And we begin, subtly or not, making the world in our own image. Yes, kings certainly get caught up in this, but all of us can get drunk on this. And, I know times in my life where I've done that, where I've said, God, I don't like this way. I'm going to do it my way. But this worldview didn't come from Babylon. And it is important to recognize that, I think. We get an image here. That this is where it enters the world. But where this worldview comes from, it comes from the beast. In fact, ultimately, this is the worldview of Satan. We've got to be honest about that. Take a look here, verse 3. We read this. And he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast that was full of blasphemous names, and it had 7 heads and 10 horns. All right, this beast enters into this image. Well, we should have an idea of what a scarlet beast is at this point. This is an indication of the power of Satan entering into the world. And if this woman is seated upon the beast, we have an image here that what is her foundation? Satan is the foundation here. A satanic principle is a foundation. And that word Satan that we use sometimes, that's a Hebrew word that means to be in opposition, to be an adversary, especially to be opposed to what God is doing. And that is what Satan does. He opposes God. But the way he usually opposes God isn't directly opposite always. It's often a counterfeit. A little bit of truth mixed in with his lies in order to catch you. And what do we find with this foundation, this beast? Well, we find something similar. It says here that it was full of blasphemous names. Now, the idea of blasphemy means lying. These are lying names. To commit blasphemy against God is to lie about God and who he is. But the core of this creature, this thing, what it is filled with is lies. So his proposition, Satan's proposition, is a lie. And what's the great lie of Satan? What's that first great lie of Satan that we find in Genesis? Anybody know that? You can be like God. You surely won't die eating that. No, when you eat it, you'll be like God. That is the lie, but that is also the worldview that we see here. It's the counterfeit, because, God actually intends you to become more like him. He actually wants us to be more like him. But Satan's way is that self-focused way, not let God transform you, No, make yourself God. Transform yourself to take God's place, not to be transformed by God. It's the essence of that is, well, exactly what Adam did. It's reaching out to grab it rather than receiving what God has for you. Taking rather than trusting what the Lord is doing. Now, at times that can be a subtle difference there, but it makes all the difference because this is what Lucifer did. He reached out to take the glory for himself. It's what Adam did. He reached out to take that fruit for himself. And this can be something that we do because God's not moving quick enough or God's not doing what we want. God's not bringing the resolution we need, so we're going to take it. We'll be God for a day. Now, the challenge is, if it were just that, that'd be one thing, but there's also power here. Because as we look around, we can see at times this seems to work. This beast has power. If there weren't any power, no one would listen. And he has power because he has proof. He can show it. I mean, at times there's even miracles that are done by these things. And the rulers of the world, they are taken in by this lie because there's power behind it. The image here of 7 heads and 10 horns, it's explained a little bit further. But we've talked about this image in the other beasts as well. 7 heads, it indicates something of a perfection of wisdom. He sounds good. And 10 horns, that's an indication of power. The idea of a horn was to show power. He doesn't just sound good, but he can do things. Even those miracles. Things can be resolved at times. But don't be deceived. There are 2 foundations to choose from. You can only have one of them. There's a foundation that is on Jesus, that is founded upon Jesus and the teaching of the apostles. Many of you know this verse, Ephesians 2:19 through 21. So then, you are no longer strangers and aliens, but you are fellow citizens with the saints and members of the household of God, built on the foundation of the apostles and prophets, Christ Jesus himself being the cornerstone, in whom the whole structure being joined together grows into a holy temple in the Lord. That's the right foundation. Teaching of the apostles, foundation upon Jesus. That's what we get in the gospel. Remember, that's what we hold on to. That's our hope, that we couldn't do anything. We're sinners who are lost, but God the Father loved us so much that he sent his Son to live that life we were meant to live, die the death we deserved, and then rose again, having paid for our sins, proclaiming victory, saying this is the way into relationship with the Father. That is our foundation that we hold on to. That's the teaching of the apostles. And what that says is, I'm not God, I can't control it, but I can trust the one who is, because I know my Savior, I know my Redeemer. That's a safe foundation. The foundation of the beast is a little bit different. We can go back to Isaiah for this one and see the heart of this one, Isaiah 14, 13, and 14, because this is what was in the heart of Lucifer. Isaiah speaks this, you said in your heart, I will ascend to heaven. Above the stars of God, I will set my throne on high. I will sit on the mount of assembly in the far reaches of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will make myself like the Most High. Yeah, that's a lie of Satan right there. That foundation is, I will be God of my own life. But we are to let God be God. Those are 2 foundations. You can only choose one of them. And you join with Babylon if you choose that latter one. Say, I'm going to make it myself. And here, next, we see that power in how it actually meets the world with this woman now as she comes into view a little better. Picking up at verse 4, we read this. The woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet and adorned with gold and jewels and pearls, holding in her hand a golden cup of abominations and the impurity of her sexual morality. And on her forehead was written a name of mystery, Babylon the Great, mother of prostitutes and of earth's abominations. And I saw the woman drunk with the blood of the saints and of the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. When I saw her, I marveled greatly. Well, this is where that satanic principle actually sort of hits the road with people. And the crazy thing here is John sits there and marvels at it. He looks at it, and it's this amazing image. Now, I don't think he was attracted by it, but it's enough to say he looks at it, and it looks like it's working. Because look at this Babylon here. First, I mean, she's royal. She's arrayed in purple and scarlet. That is, there's rule and there's authority in this self-made satanic principle. The world leaders know that. The idea of a self-made man, you take the power. That's what that leads to. take the power. But also, she's rich. She's sitting there, with gold and jewels and pearls. Yeah, there's wealth to be made in that satanic self-made principle. So make the money. Now, she's also exciting. There's something intriguing. There's something to draw you in. I mean, we hear of these abominations and these immoralities, but let's face it, when the world looks at that, they say, oh, that looks interesting. That looks like something to check out. That's why everyone here is getting drunk off of it, because there's a lot of fun to be had in that sense, in the self-made satanic principle. So do what you want. And there's also some measure of victory here, because she's sitting there drinking the blood of the martyrs, the blood of those who follow after Jesus, the blood of those who are supposed to be conquering her. You don't drink the blood of when you're the loser. You don't drink the blood of your enemies when you're the one losing. John's looking on and he's seeing this in this woman, that she's successful in taking the power and making the money and doing what she wants and winning the game. I might ask, who wins in this game? With this drive to win no matter what? Well, by this principle, whoever gets the most stuff, whoever has the most experience, whoever has the most toys, money, sex, whatever it is, you win. That's the ideal. That's what the world presents as the goal. We have the Super Bowl coming up here soon. Just watch some commercials and you'll see that repeated over and over and over again. You want to win? Buy that product, get this experience, do this thing. That's how you win at life. When you put all these together, you have the world's way of working, all labeled as Babylon, based on that satanic proposition, be your own God. This is where those spiritual forces of evil are made manifest in our world, where we can begin to see them at work, and sometimes they could even look like truth, but they're always turned to that selfish aim. Now, if we're good Christians here, where is the danger for us when we see that outside, when we see that out there? Well, the danger is when we start accepting some of that. We're not immune to this. We're not like special and above it all to where we're not affected by this. We can be taken in. And there's some ways we can do it. There's an obvious way. You can just accept that worldview and live it out. You can accept the worldview and just live that one out, running from God. You can do that. You can look at God and say, no, I'm going to go another way. You can look at God and say, I don't like what you're doing, so I'm going to do something else. And if you want to stop me, you can stop me, but that's what I'm doing. And you know what? God will let you. He will let you go that way. He will let you figure that out, and He will still be waiting there, waiting for the prodigal son to come back home. But that's an obvious one. I mean, you probably know that if that's your case. Maybe some ways that aren't as obvious would be things like this, but like lying about God. That's what we see in this beast, these blasphemous names, these lies about who God is, and lifting themselves up in this way. Now, you could probably say, well, I would never do that. I would never lie about God. And then I saw a video, it was yesterday, and it was like, oh, wow, yeah, that's not necessarily true. And it was a video of a song, one of those wonderful, Sunday school songs. And I got to say, I don't like this one, and I'm so sorry if this is your favorite, because I'm going to trash it a little bit here. But it's the one that says, I'm happy all the time, up and down and all the rest, and I'm happy all the time. That one grates on me, because if you want to read the Bible, you're not going to find many people who are happy all the time. Rejoice, yes. Be joyful, yes, but joy is not happiness. That's a lie about God if we say God is supposed to make you happy. God's not supposed to make you happy. Bring you joy, yes, not be happy. He's not supposed to make you. He's not just going to make you in this life always, every time, healthy, wealthy, and all the rest. That's not how it works. Again, read the Bible, because the people there, they didn't go through those experiences. We can lie about God like that. And when we misrepresent God, when we lie about who God is, what we're actually doing is we're making ourselves our own God. We're making ourselves our own little God that we can hold on to and say, this is the God we follow, who isn't the true God. Now, we can do that, making a God in our own image, but we can also follow after Babylon by taking on what is God's and making it our own. When we do this, we are making ourselves God. We're not just making another God, we're making ourselves God. We can do that by telling God what to do. I think we've all had experience of that before. Telling God the plan that He should follow when we don't like the plan that He seems to be unfolding. Say, God, no, you should be doing this. We've done it, but we should recognize that's a little bit of Babylon in our hearts that seeps in when we do that. That's a little bit of Babylon there when we allow that to happen, because we're saying, God, I'd be a better God than you. I should probably have that place. We can also do that. Another way we take God's job is when we condemn others. It is God's job to condemn, and I know it can be easy at times, especially when we look around and see so many things off, to jump in and launch condemnation. But to be fair, we have enough to do loving people. I like the 2 signs that we have up here. Love your enemies, love one another. You got enough work to do just focusing on those ones. Condemnation, leave that to God. He will bring condemnation because He knows where it needs to go. Another area, though, where we can do this, and I find myself doing this sometimes, and that's bringing condemnation on yourself. Again, leave that to God, and guess what God says about that? I think I remember reading something about there is no more condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. Yeah, so when we start pulling those, those pity parties, by all means, don't sin, grow in maturity, draw near to God. But when you let that self-pity in and just think about how terrible and useless you are and how condemned you are, well, you just put yourself in God's place. Well, God, what He's wanting to do is sit there and tell you, I love you, when He's sitting there wanting to encourage you, when He's sitting there wanting to build you up, and you say, God, no, that's not what I need. What I need is this. Now, that again is letting a little Babylon into your heart. And these aren't the only ways. You come up with plenty more, I'm sure. But you could ask yourself that question. Have you let Babylon into your heart? It can be small. It usually comes in small. And it can look very good, even very religious. Those Pharisees, we've talked about them before, they looked very religious. But they lived in the lies of Babylon. Because Babylon, it works hard, it looks successful. But if you're not being honest and giving God His authority in your life, there is some Babylon there. And here now, as fantastic as it looked, as marvelous as it looked that John would look on and marvel, now we get the reality. See, now the reality, the image is sort of stripped away, and the lie can be seen for what it is as this vision shifts. Picking up here in verse 7, the angel shifts it, because it says here, but the angel said to me, and so he's getting the attention, he's shifting it away. The angel said to me, why do you marvel? I will tell you the mystery of the woman and of the beast with the 7 heads and 10 horns that carries her. The beast that you saw was and is not, and is about to rise from the bottomless pit and go to destruction. It's a key point there. And the dwellers on earth, whose names have not been written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, will marvel to see the beast, because it was and is not and is to come. So here it is, the shift that we have here. Perhaps John, even as he was looking on, he might have been wondering, what is going on? It looks like she's winning. It's looked like the beast is winning. And so the angel jumps in and says, why are you wondering? No, here's what the truth is. And reality is made clear. Now I do look at that, and I just think sometimes that would be amazing if God would step in occasionally, strip that out, and I can see reality a little better. I trust the reason why He doesn't do it sometimes, give that clarity. But here we have it. And here we have it stripped away. Yes, it's enticing. It's desirable, but it's destructive. This beast is going to destruction, and it will take all those who marvel at it with it into that destruction. They're caught up in it, but the lie is destined to destruction. That requires faith. That requires trusting God and saying, yes, we see how marvelous the world's plan can look at times, but it is destined to destruction. Look a little more closely at the beast here. Verse 9, we read this. This calls for a mind of, with wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman is seated. There are also 7 kings, 5 of whom have fallen. One is, the other has not yet come, and when he does come, he must remain only a little while. As for the beast that was and is not, it is an 8th, and it belongs to the 7, and it goes to destruction. And the 10 horns that you saw are the 10 kings who have not yet received royal power, but they are to receive authority as kings for 1 hour, together with the beast. These are of one mind, and they hand over their power and authority to the beast. All right, so, it should be very clear who all those people are, who all those kings and kingdoms are, right? You ask 5 different people who've studied this for years, and they'll give you 5 different answers. We don't know what all these kingdoms are and what they may be. I trust at some point it'll be very clear for us. But what we can see is the truth of what's going on. All right, these are all the powers of the earth, and behind the powers of the earth is this beast. These are kings and these are kingdoms. We don't know which ones. Yeah, it could be Rome, it could be various. We don't know, but all nations can fall into this. In fact, I would venture to say most, if not all, have. That is, most will be empowered by that satanic principle. They will derive their power not from Christ and a foundation of Christ, but from a foundation of, I will be my own God. I will take my own destiny. I will take it into hand, be master of my soul. One day they will get their power from the beast, but they are there now. There are many nations like that, which is a warning, for us. Don't place your hopes in nations. You certainly be a good citizen, but don't place your hope in America. We can hope for America, but don't place your hope in it. Our allegiance should not be first to any nation, state, country, or the rest. Our allegiance is first to the kingdom. That is where we need to stand. First for the kingdom. Place your hope there, because that's where true victory is. Even as much as we may love this country, we have to recognize that satanic principles are at work in a lot of it. But in the kingdom, we can trust in that. Moving on, though, here, we see why we can place our hope for victory in the kingdom, in our Christ, in the Lamb. Verse 14, after all these images of, all the power of the beast and the kingdoms that are all pulled into it, we have this verse that turns it all around. They will make war on the Lamb, and the Lamb will conquer them. For he is Lord of lords and King of kings, and those with him are called and chosen and faithful. No matter how powerful the world looks, no matter how well it seems to work, ultimately it will lose to the Lamb. That is our hope. That's the point where this whole story turns around. Because up to this point, Babylon might have looked good, it might have looked like it would win, but in the end, Babylon and that way of thinking is doomed. It is going to destruction. The Lamb will win. That takes trust when you feel like you're losing, because we can feel like that at times. So that calls for us to trust that God is bringing it around, to trust that and to stand with him. Like it says here, to be the ones who are called and chosen and faithful. Wouldn't that be wonderful, to stand on the victorious side, being called and chosen and faithful? We do need to trust in God to realize that. That's why the angel is revealing this. This is why the angel is explaining this to John, so that he would understand. You got to remember the time period he was in. There would be no meeting at all like this. The church was scattered, it was small, it was persecuted. They didn't have hope in the world. There was no nation that supported them. Every nation out there would be against them. Vast governments that often put their mind on destroying the church. All of this coming against them. And here's this vision. No matter what you see, no matter what you're going through, no matter how many times you see the church being wiped out, your friends and neighbors killed for their faith, guess what? The Lamb still wins, and Babylon falls. And that's what we see here, because ultimately it's all in God's control. Closing out 15 through 18, we read this. The angel said to me, the waters that you saw where the prostitute is seated are peoples and multitudes and nations and languages. And the 10 horns you saw, they and the beast will hate the prostitute. They will make her desolate and naked, devour her flesh, and burn her up with fire. For God has put it into their hearts to carry out his purpose by being of one mind and handing over their royal power to the beast until the words of God are fulfilled. And the woman that you saw is the great city that has dominion over the kings of the earth. We can stop and think about that for just a moment. God's in control of all of that. He has control over everything that's going on, to the point that he ends up placing it in the hearts of this beast to tear up and destroy Babylon. She will be destroyed here. Now we have that image. The Babylon, the whore, she is everywhere. She's involved in everything. She all peoples, all nations, all tongues, all are influenced by this, but it's rooted in Satan. And the thing about him is he's only there to destroy. Satan is only there to destroy. So if you have your foundation on something like his principles, it will only lead to your destruction. And Babylon here is destroyed by her own foundation, torn apart by her own, what she is holding on to, that worldview that she's holding on to. That great city, for all its power, is doomed by its choice of foundation. Which is a reminder for us then that if your foundation is wrong, you will follow suit with that. You know, if you are trying to be your own God in your own life, trying to make your own God in your own life, trying to just run from God in your life, you will go to destruction. Now, you might be saved and trying to do those things, but you will experience destruction in this life then, certainly. Paul talks about it when he talks about someone who might have the right foundation that is, in Jesus, but everything they build up is practically, like they're building on the foundation of Satan. And he talks about it, you'll make it, but you'll make it like you got out of a fire. In other words, you'll be smelling like smoke on your way in. You won't have anything to show for it. That will be what your life amounts to if you try and build on this wrong foundation. So, what we should do, reading a chapter like this and seeing what is being revealed, is realize the truth and not get taken in, but have the right foundation on Jesus. Truly Him being your master, the one who you will obey, the one who you will say, yes, God, I will trust you, rather than the other way around, trying to be master yourself. Because Babylon, it may look good. Like that steak, it may look delicious, but it is a lie. And it is a lie that will bring you to destruction. So what we can do is hold on to Jesus. Trust in Him. Reject the lie of Babylon. That lie, that idea you should be your own God, you should be in control, you should make your God as you need, or you should just run from Him to find what you want. Reject that lie. Accept the truth that we find in Jesus. That God can be your God. And that is good.